It should be the one, permanent. Haven't talked to the white ones.
Well, we're going to the planning board for the first one. Depends what, there's so many public hearings. Yeah, it's like 2024.
They are.
Yeah.
And they have not, just gotten their tax stuff.
But what's funny is.
Is Monday, May 11th, 2026, and we're just after 10 a.m. The MPO Technical Advisory Committee meeting is called to order. There you go. I had to feel the power. Do we have anyone joining virtually?
Yeah, Amy Nelson and John Creamer, city events.
Now I'll ask the Kelly confirm a quorum. Kelly is a quorum present.
Yes, we do have a.
All right. All right, so let's all stand and recite the pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. We will now open the meeting for public comment, including comments on any agenda items. On the screen, you will see 3 ways for the public to provide input to the TAC. All comments received will be shared with the committee members and made a part of the public record. Kelly, do we have any public comment cards?
No, no public comment.
All right. Moving right along. And then for agenda item 4, approval of the minutes for the Technical Advisory Committee meeting from March 9th, 2026. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes from the March meeting?
Motion to approve.
Here a second.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, it passes unanimously. All right, moving right along. Action items are next on the agenda. First is 5A Transportation Improvement Program, the TIP amendments. FDOT staff will present this item. And I believe we have a new FDOT person.
Yep. My name is David Scarpelli, FDOT liaison, community liaison. This has been sent to us, the TIP. It's being reviewed right now, the checklist. And we're just waiting for the approval from the MPO.
So do we need to, can you just go through what the TIP amendment is?
Yeah.
For?
Yeah, this is for a specific amendment, not for the TIP generally. It's the
Oh,
one for the 51st Street West. Improvement in Manatee County.
Sure. Talk about the amendment for me.
Yeah, so that's the sale kind of correct, right, Clark? I think it's $2.5 million were added to that project.
Yes.
Due to a shortfall, the department is coming to request that we backfill that project to make sure it stays on track. That's as far as I know about the project in itself. I don't know if the county has anything they'd like to add on that, or it was a request made by the department to kind of make sure that we're not falling behind in the project state.
And it was to move funding to preliminary engineering phase that was at the federal level, they called it construction. And,
Yeah.
and the federal definition of construction covers every phase required to put a a project into service, but it got interpreted hyper literally and put on actual construction. And so now we're trying to move it to preliminary engineering activities where it belongs.
So the funding is not getting changed. It's just the funding is getting moved to a different
But
phase. Okay, thank you.
All right,
I'll move to
thank you. So
approve the TIP
I will
amendment.
now, okay, so entertain a motion to recommend the MPO approval. Tip amendments, is there a motion?
so moved.
Second.
Okay. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Hearing none, motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Moving right along. Next is item 5B, fiscal year 2026-27 through 2030-31 Transportation Improvement Program. Dina Winter will present this item.
Thank you. So we are presenting to you the draft FY 27-31 tip to recommend MPO board approval at their upcoming meeting on May 18th, including any public comments received. Just a quick overview of where we are. This whole process kicked off with the adoption of the 2025 project priorities in March of last year. Since then, we've done some transit coordination to incorporate the transit safety targets, the transit asset management targets, including the federal obligations. We received a tip download of project information from FDOT on April 6th, received an approved FDOT tip review checklist, which says that we have all of the required information and recommended information included in the tip, the draft tip. And we are currently open for a 30-day public comment period, which will close the morning of May 18th, just ahead of the board adoption. So we have received 12 public comments so far to date. So I did want to offer a quick overview of what we've heard so far. Some of the themes include growth and development. One of them was specifically tied to issues of growth and development and ensuring that we are also accommodating issues around mobility and addressing congestion. But most of the comments around growth and development were tied into environmental preservation, natural resources protection, natural hazards, specifically hurricanes, and also ensuring that we're accommodating for efficient and secure evacuation routes. We also heard quite a bit about roundabouts and intersections. The one comment about roundabouts was that they are an excellent mobility countermeasure. So that was tied to mobility and congestion, but we also had very specific call outs for roundabout requests, specifically at US 41 at Orange Ave, Myrtle Street, and Martin Luther King Jr. Way as well. Then there was a specific comment about addressing congestion around University Parkway at I-75, and a request to take a look at queuing concerns on Tuttle Avenue west of University Parkway. So we will pass that on to the appropriate agency once this is adopted. There was also a comment specifically about the Branch and Palmetto connector. They did not use those words specifically, but there was concerns about the north-south movement across the river, and they mentioned a flyover. So I'm just saying Branch and Palmetto connector. More specifically, we did have a comment that State Road 789 multi-use trail was missing from the draft tip. That has since been resolved. It was just a matter of how they presented, the information was downloaded from FDOT and presented to the MPO. So it is now included in the draft tip that is available online. There was also a specific request for Breeze Transit to take a look at going fare free and potentially a new route on US 41 from the airport over to BH Road via downtown Sarasota. So we'll get that comment over to you as well. And then we did have a citizen comment about non-motorized safety and access into Oscar Sheriff State Park via US 41. This is not the first time that we've heard about this safety concern on US 41. Pedestrians and bicyclists currently only have a narrow shoulder to use to access the state park, which is also an important connector to the Legacy Trail as well. So we'll make sure that that information is included in the draft as well. So with that, just wanted to offer a quick overview of what we've heard so far from public comments, but I'll take any specific questions that you have on the draft before you take a motion on this.
Corinne?
It's not necessarily on the draft, it's more about the public comment period ending the same day as it's going for adoption by the board. What if you get a substantial, like, how are you gonna make sure that what the board sees is actually the draft? And considering you have to send it to the board, is it 2 weeks, 7 days in advance? I just wonder about this
Yeah,
timeline.
it's a good question. We do have this scheduling challenge every year, just because of the timing of when we get the FDOT tip download versus for the 30-day public comment period. We are a little over 30-day public comment period, just by a couple of days. So we're hoping that any major public comments would have received well before the board. But if we did receive public comments that drastically altered the tip, then that would be a discussion at the board meeting.
Closes right before the work starts too. I don't know if that helps. Probably not.
If there's no other comments or questions, I see that we've had some, it seems like it's a change in the format of the document. I know I'm a creature of habit, and if we can keep the county stuff separate, because it's difficult for me at least, flipping back, trying to find where all of my projects are. Trying to go searching, okay, I'm in Manatino, now I'm in Sarasota. So we can be consistent. And so that's my comment.
Sure, that's no problem. It's easy fix.
All right, so you're looking for a recommendation for MPO board approval? Is there a motion?
So moved.
Any second?
Second.
I mean, if you don't, I mean, it dies for a lack of,
No, it's fine.
but okay, thank you, Clark, thank you, Jennifer. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously. All right. All right, next is 5C, Joint Transportation Regional Incentive Program, otherwise known as TRIP, Project Priority List. Nina would also present this item.
Thank you. So at our previous TAC meeting, we offered a draft joint trip priority list for your review. Both of those lists are developed in coordination with both TPO in District 7 and Charlotte County Jagorda MPO in District 1. So the TRIP funding program, just for a quick overview for folks who are maybe less familiar with it, it is a state funding program established in 2005. It's an incentive program for local governments and the private sector to improve regionally significant transportation facilities and to benefit regional travel and commerce. It does pay 50% of the non-federal share of project costs and also does require a 50% local match. Looking at the 2050 revenue forecasts, we can expect to see about 10 million in TRIP funds in the Sarasota Manatee MPO area every 5 years. So it is an incentive program. It's not meant to cover entire project costs. The state statute does define some eligibility criteria, one of which is that the projects are included in the MPO's LRTP, as well as the TIP and STIP once they are programmed. So when we developed the 2050 Long Range Transportation Plan, we worked closely with the jurisdictions to make sure that the right projects are included in the LRTP, so they are eligible for TRIP funds moving forward. As I mentioned, we do TRIP joint priorities with both TPO and Charlotte County Jagorda MPO. The requirement to do a joint list is also to emphasize the regional significance of these projects. And so if we can agree as a 2-county MPO area or 2 MPO region on these TRIP priorities, it can emphasize the regional significance of these projects. So we do have different rules or agreements with each TPO on how the projects are ordered. So Pima Pope TPO and Sarasota Manatee, we rotate the #1 spot every year. Whereas with Charlotte County Punta Gorda MPO, the rank order is based on the total trip funds that have been awarded to each MPO area since the program was established. So the projects lists are in your agenda packets, but for this year, Sarasota County is in the #1 spots, followed by Pope, Charlotte County, and then Manatee County at the #3 spot. These are just the Sarasota Manatee projects, and we've got them here on a map as well, so you can see how they are distributed regionally. But you can take a closer look at the joint projects in the list in your packet. We haven't had any changes to the list since they were brought to you at the last MPO meeting. But I'm happy to take any questions before you consider approval.
All right. See any questions? So I will now entertain a motion to recommend NPO board approval of the 2026 joint trip project priority list. Is there a motion?
So move.
Second? Or a second?
Second.
All right. I didn't catch who said it first.
I don't know. Okay,
My motion.
okay.
All right, so we have a motion with a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously. Thank you. And Nina is still up. All right, the last action item today is 5D, advancing organizational safety culture.
Thank you. So December last year, we kicked off a new safety initiative called Advancing Organizational Safety Culture. You may have heard us talk about it at the previous meetings, and so what we want to do at this meeting is offer a more detailed view about what this initiative is all about. We are taking it to the MPO board for approval on Monday. Advancing Organizational Safety Culture is really rooted in the Destination Zero Safety Action Plan. Since the safety action plan was adopted, we worked on the education implementation plan, developed a high injury network. We had a pilot with Federal Highway Administration on their organizational safety culture self-assessment pilot, which helped develop this tool that FHWA was publishing and has since been published. And this is really where the MPO invited stakeholders like you to participate in that workshop. I think several of you were actually there. And it was really the first time that we were sensitized to this idea of organizational safety culture. So in December 2020, or in summer 2025, we wanted to make sure that we were moving forward with safety, and decided to pick up the organizational safety culture piece and do a bit more of a deeper dive on it. And so we kicked that off in December. We're finishing it up right now. So what is organizational safety culture? FHWA describes it as having really two interconnected pieces, an internal safety culture component and then a programmatic safety culture piece. The internal safety culture piece is more value driven. It focuses more on the deeply rooted beliefs and attitudes towards safety within the organization. So when we're talking about organizational safety culture, we're really focus on the programmatic piece and making sure that safety is driving the mission and the mandates of the organization, but turning it around also to make sure that the value of safety is informing the decisions and the processes of the organization more internally. So while we have safety defined in our mandate and core products, we want to make sure that also day to day, safety is informing every decision that we are making at the level of staff and leadership, and also with our work with our partners as well. So when we started this off, we really wanted to take a look at what's going on in the rest of the country with transportation agencies around this idea of organizational safety culture. The one thing that we learned was that the literature is there. You can spend the next year or two reading about organizational safety culture. And at large, we're seeing transportation agencies sort of moving more from informal practices to formalizing the standards, integrating safety more as a governing constraint, shifting from crash histories more towards systemic risk. But when we are looking at transportation agencies focusing on organizational safety culture proper, we're not really finding a peer yet in the field, which puts us in an interesting place because we don't really have a benchmark. But we know that this is an emergent concept and that there are other agencies also taking a look at it. So that sort of just let us know where we were in that space. After taking a look at what our peers were doing, we took a look at the organization itself. Our consulting firm, who is White House Group, took a look at our core products, our planning documents, our policies. They actually came here and had an entire day workshop with MPO staff where we did one-on-one interviews and sort of had a very frank and candid conversation about safety within the organization. And so from that, we were able to identify our strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and risks. Following that, we invited our partners to come here for kind of like a visioning workshop. When we're talking about organizational safety culture, really, what are we envisioning the mission of the organization? I think our baseline is kind of the mission of safety for the MPO is destination zero, zero fatalities and serious injuries. And that is almost what everybody said, which is the work that we do. But when we're thinking about organizational safety culture, we wanted to think about for the organization, what does that look like in driving our action? So we had a visioning activity in addition to a few others where we looked at roles and responsibilities, but we wanted to understand really what are the themes driving safety in the work that we're doing. And some of those themes were, everyone gets home safely, prevention over reaction, transformative safety culture mindset, and also shared accountability. So our consultant was able to draft a few vision statements, but we workshopped it a little bit and we sort of landed on to foster a proactive safety culture that guides regional decision-making, involves local communities, and affirms the shared responsibility of assuring that everyone gets home safely. And the idea is that by integrating this as our vision, we are able to then also get closer to the vision of zero fatalities and serious injuries. So these are two pieces of that puzzle. So from there, we drafted a strategic safety improvement plan sort of as a companion piece to the Destination Zero Safety Action Plan. And this draft was included in your agenda packets. I'm not going to go into detail. I'm going to offer a very sort of high level overview of what this plan looks like. So driven by the Destination Zero initiative or action plan, this improvement plan is the operational blueprint for improving the safety culture of the MPO of the organization. This is a strategic guide meant to inform the organizational's culture and also our operations, what it looks like day to day and how safety is integrated in day to day. It's an internal guiding document for MPO staff and for MPO leadership to implement this organizational change. And it's a living document. It's something that we'll be revisiting every year. We are going to also be looking at establishing performance metrics and reporting. And so this is something that we'll be revisiting, which is also important given that the landscape changes, priorities change as well. It offers some very clean next steps. We want to make sure that we're expanding training and empowering staff. We want to formalize our frameworks for cross-agency collaboration because we know that the MPO does not operate in a vacuum. The MPO is an organization of partnerships. We'll be establishing some performance metrics and then also implementing a communication strategy. So when we take a look at what the MPO's role is in safety culture and what our sort of strategic influence is, we want to make sure that it is carried over also into our core products and our mandate documents. And also making sure that even if safety is defined in our core products and mandates, that in our day-to-day, it is also aligned. So just making sure that those pieces match. So the strategic safety improvement plan defines sort of 5 benchmark phases. Right now, we're kind of in phase 1, which is all about awareness and shared vision, making sure that we're all having buy-in, that we're all on the same page. The plan itself is organized by these 5 phases, and each phase defines a specific focus area, goals and objectives for each of those 5 phases. Also, it defines the primary owner of who is responsible for implementing and carrying forward that goal. When you look at the plan, in most cases, it is MPO staff, right? It's MPO staff, it's MPO leadership. But it also calls out who our supporting partners are. Who is it that we need to be communicating with and working with in order to establish this goal? And most of the time, it is our partner agencies, or it's members of the public, or it's our leadership, right? And then also evaluation questions, just to make sure that we are on the right track. Then paired with the safety improvement plan, we have a communication strategy that is also broken out by these 5 phases. So the purpose of the communication strategy is to build and sustain public awareness of regional roadway safety. One thing that we have heard at the BPTAC as well as at the CAC and just in meetings over the last few years is we talk about safety so much in these meetings, but do members of the public also know about this? And so we want to make sure that we have a very clear strategy for taking these conversations and also bringing it out into the public and bringing out public engagement and outreach. The communication strategy is also meant to strengthen cross-agency coordination and information sharing. So whereas the communication strategy does call out public outreach and engagement, it also tells us which of our partners we need to be communicating with as well to strengthen those relationships. So for each of those phases, we've identified strategic objectives for the communication, what the communication goals are, what the engagement approach might look like, what channels we can leverage, and then also what the messaging tone is. So altogether, the strategic improvement plan is something that we'll be able to take and continue to workshop. So now as staff is in phase 1, we can start identifying actionable steps. We can start identifying performance metrics and really implementing that phase. I think very often we'll find ourselves in between phases. So maybe in a year, we'll find ourselves between phase 1 and phase 2. And by establishing those performance metrics, we'll be able to sort of benchmark exactly where we are and if we need to be moving back or if we need to be moving forward. But the idea is that if we say our mission is 0 fatalities and serious injuries, that every action we take here at the organization is really geared towards that. So we're not losing sight of that mission. And that's so we can normalize the idea of safety in all of our decision making. So this is what we'll be bringing to the board on Monday next week and asking them for their approval to really move forward and implement this improvement plan.
Questions? All right, I will now entertain a motion to recommend MPO board approval of the strategic safety improvement plan. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously. All right. We're on to presentations. First is 6A, the FDOT report, starting with 6A. District 1 Safety Strategic Plan.
Morning. I'm Keith Robbins. I'm the District Safety Administrator from FDOT District 1. And in this bag, I've got some stuff for you that's going to relate to what I'm going to be talking about this morning. And I think it's great to hear what Nina just presented to you on their strategic safety improvement plan, because that's what I'm going to be talking to you about that we're doing, is promoting attractive safety culture with our own strategic safety strategic plan. I brought hard copies of it. You are the first people to get hard copies of this plan. So I've got these for you. I've also got some copies of our 2025 year review newsletter from the safety office. You can't get one of these unless you get one of these. Okay. So what I'm going to be talking to you about, really, I can't say enough. What Nina and the NPO here have done with their plan is a lot of that is applicable here. And the department as a whole is shifting its approach from more of a reaction-based approach to safety to a proactive-based approach. And a lot of that is going to be about behavior. And you'll see that theme coming through here just as you did with Nina's presentation. So this is the state's commitment to Target Zero. New statistics there based on 2020 to 2024, 2 people died, 7 people are seriously injured on the roads in District 1 every day. That's not a good statistic. We are moving in the right direction, happy to say, but that's still too many. Obviously, it's the safe system approach wheel on the right side, but what on the left is the cover of the pending update to the state strategic highway safety plan. Should be coming out later this month. And everything that we've done is based in dovetail with that. So we asked some people a little while back, what concerns you the most while driving? 74% of the people said other drivers. Other drivers, not, oh, we need a guardrail here, or oh, this road's too wide, or you need to lower the speed limit. Other drivers, what can we do about that? That's a hard question to answer. Your MPO isn't going in the right direction with that plan. We're hoping to do the same with ours. So she gave you a great slide that talked about an organizational safety culture. I want to talk about a traffic safety culture. Take everything that she said in that slide and just insert traffic, okay? And when you look at the numbers, traffic safety is a public health issue. We always see commercials about how many people die from cigarette smoking, how many people die from drinking too much or eating too much or whatever. But we don't see enough out there to talk about the number of people that die to highway crashes, roadway crashes. So just as Nina said, and Nina, I'm going to be pinging on you because those are some great slides. In fact, I'm going to steal one of those slides from you. Behavior is influenced by beliefs. We develop those beliefs in many ways. Traffic safety culture is that shared set of beliefs in a group that affect behaviors related specifically to traffic safety. So strategies are meant to try and address that culture impact. And I mentioned our plan. So this is it in a nutshell. We have the 5 E's up there and all of these things that what we're trying to approach. We've got different strategies and objectives and action items that I'm going to walk through with you here as we're going forward. So why did we do one? What is it? It is an action-oriented 5-year plan with 1, 3, and 5-year goals, really trying to make advancements across the district. We have 12 counties in our district, all of Southwest Florida. Every one of them is very different. We have some very affluent communities. We have some very poor communities. We have a county that has some of the richest neighborhoods and the poorest neighborhoods in the state in that same county. So we have a very wide set of dynamics to deal with. We're going to use the safe system approach as a guide, working with our partners throughout the district, really looking to foster that traffic safety culture, focusing on changing behaviors, prioritizing to get to our goal of target zero fatality, fatal and serious injury crashes on our roadway. And we've got both internal and external opportunities for collaboration. So what are our objectives? Advancing this traffic safety culture, strengthening partner engagement, and reinforcing safety successes. And underneath each of those, they have the strategies for getting to those objectives. And we cannot do this without the assistance and collaboration of our partners across the district. You'll notice when you look through here, this is not a project-based plan. This is not your tip or your trip or your, the work program or anything like that. This is all about other things. So it's really meant to address that culture. So in advancing a traffic safety culture, and if you can't read this, don't worry about it because it's in the book as well. We went through and we had a lot of workshops. We had internal workshops with our staff, both at the headquarters and across all of our op centers. And then we had several public workshops. Several of the folks in here actually attended those. We did them in the rural counties, Polk County, and over here. And everybody across the board was saying virtually the same thing. Didn't matter what office you were from, they were all saying the same thing. So we didn't do much changing of the objectives or the strategies or the action items because we kind of confirmed. We started with a clean slate every meeting. And when we got after it, we looked at it, well, thank God, that's like a 95% match of what we already had. So again, strengthening partner engagement, working with groups like this to help implement that culture and everything that's in their plan, it's perfect for this. And we did this with in mind that this isn't just a District 1 document. every organization and partner in the district can use this as a guide to help you with your own approach. And so this NPO is actually steps ahead of most of the others in the district. And then finally, reinforcing safety successes. This is the one area where it is kind of leaning in on projects, where if we've done some safety treatments on a roadway and we see that it's working, then can we do that in other locations? You know, repeat that success in other places. And I give you two examples up here. On the left, this was a 41 corridor here in Bradenton area, and Cortez Road also in Bradenton area. Some of the modifications and treatments that we did out there have brought 47 and 70% less fatal and serious injury crashes in those corridors. And these are among our top 10 worst fatal and serious injury corridors in the district. So if we can do this here, we can do it elsewhere. And so that's what we mean by repeating and reinforcing safety successes. This is a look at all of the emphasis areas that you see in the state's strategic plan and how we compare in district. Red are fatalities, blue are serious injuries in each of the, across the district in each of these emphasis areas. So obviously lane departures is by far the highest, followed very closely by intersections. So, and then down about a third of the way down, you got aging road users. Anybody have any idea why aging road users numbers would be so high?
For retirement. Community.
Retirement community is one, but what else? I asked the people that are in my age bracket in the room. We get injured a lot easier. Now you can hurt yourself going out the door in the morning, okay, sometimes. So we saw, especially in some of our counties where there are a lot of retirement communities, we saw, why in the world are your numbers so high? And it's not that they're serious injury crashes all the time, but just injury crashes in general. So aging road users, your bodies are not as strong as a 20-year-old. So obviously you're going to have a little bit more. So that's something to keep in mind. Motorcycles and motor scooters. There's a lot of talk about e-bikes. I've seen kids. I saw a kid on Friday. I was driving home on 44th. By the way, I love 44th Avenue. Man, that is freaking awesome. That's the way I go to work every day now. So it's a great job on that roadway. But I saw a kid. He was riding his e-bike on the sidewalk, and he had a bicycle helmet on, which is not the right kind of helmet to wear with an e-bike. He was keeping up with me. I was going 35 because I had just come through an intersection and 35 miles an hour, and he's keeping up with me. So these bikes are fast. So those numbers are going to start to climb, I'm afraid. So we need to keep watch on that. So let's bring it a little bit closer to home. This is Manatee County, same emphasis areas. Look at the numbers here. Out of 23 counties in Florida with a population of 300,000 above, that's what we're looking at. And then we have Sarasota County. So Manatee County has 3 of them that are in the red zone. And then Sarasota County is not good with that. So what are we doing from a project perspective? Right now, the current work program, we have 65 projects for a total of over $107 million in safety funds, federal safety funds across all 12 counties doing these kind of things. And over 28 projects, over 25 million in the 2025 window, and 24 million on 22 projects in the next 5, just here in Manatee and Sarasota County. But you can see where the heat blobs are for all of our concentration of fatal and serious injury crashes. So what are we doing? We're going to keep updating this. The state is on there. The one that's coming out is their 2nd edition of their strategic highway safety plan. So we'll do the same thing. We'll watch ours and we'll see how we do on these things. And in 5 years, we'll do another update so that wheel will continually go around. And we'll see if these objectives need to change or be updated in that time frame. So with that, I'll take any of your questions. And I will leave these up here for you to take. don't worry about leaving some for the next committee meeting this evening, because I got more.
Thank you, Keith.
Paula, I have one more presentation.
Oh, yeah, we're
Surprise. So we're gonna present at the MPO meeting next week for the Bradenton Palmetto connector. So I have Craig Fox here today, project manager. It's kind of a last minute thing to present to you. Pretty much the same information as the MPO meeting on the Bradenton Palmetto connector project.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you so much for accommodating us today. My name is Craig Fox, I'm representing the Florida Department of Transportation. I'm here to talk about the Bradenton Palmetto Connector PG&E study. So just an introduction to the folks that are, the main folks that are involved in this project. So we have Jimmy Vilsae, he's the FDOT Project Development Manager, and then Michelle Rutenhauser, she is the FDOT Project Manager. My name is Craig Fox, and I'm the Consultant Project Manager. They would have been here today if they could, but they're unfortunately able to attend. So this is the presentation. We're going to just give an overview of the project, talk about the corridor elimination that you may have heard of that we had a meeting for back in February this year. Also talk about the typical sections for both the existing and the proposed alternatives, and also the next steps in this study. So just an overview of the corridor. So the Bradenton Palmetto Connector study has been going on for quite some time now. You may know it was over 10 corridors before and got narrowed down to 3 corridors at the beginning of 2025. And those 3 corridors that we're looking at is awesome. All right, so corridor A in yellow, which all of them start at State Road 70. And they end in different locations based on the corridor. So corridor A was existing US 41, which also includes the Hernando De Soto Bridge. Corridor B in blue, that would be a new river crossing. And then corridor C, that would be further to the east. Sorry, corridor D was corridor further to the east, that's in purple, will go north, and then would take this kind of western movement to meet over with US 19 or 41. The purpose of the study is to evaluate additional capacity and transportation options across the Manatee River system, and also for just the regional transportation needs in general. The needs of the project include capacity, transportation demand, and of course, safety. So the corridor analysis, as part of that, we looked at the traffic, we looked at the environmental and social impacts, we looked at safety, we looked at the project costs. In addition, we had continuous outgoing public coordination with the corridors, including the workshop that we had in February of this year. So just a quick overview of the traffic. I'm not a traffic engineer. I don't really want to be one because it is very, very fun to deal with. But one of the most important things that came out of our traffic analysis, one thing that I want to highlight is this 43% here. And what that represents are the through trips. So this one is, so look at it northbound in this scenario. So when we look at the traffic that's moving throughout the different regions, kind of highlighted percentages from traffic moving to and from those specific regions. But overall, 43% of the trips that were going northbound on this corridor are through trips. So they basically, so they start and end outside of the study area of the projects. So there's a lot of through traffic that's cutting straight through 41, not necessarily turning. So that's a pretty heavy, significant number. And that comes into play when we look at the alternatives. And then the southbound, you'll see it's pretty much the same thing. 42% are through trips throughout the area. So heavy movement straight through the area. So the evaluation matrix, this is what was presented at the February public workshop. We looked at the no build. The no build is always a viable alternative throughout the entire study. Even if we go to a public hearing, it's comparative to no build because that's a serious alternative that we look at, because we don't want to patron ourselves into a point and want to listen to the community. And so if you have to go no build, the department will make that decision. So no build is a viable alternative. You also have corridor A, which is the interim, and I'll get into that in the typical section slides. There was also corridor A, the ultimate, which is 2 lanes elevated, and with 2 additional lanes at grade. So it'd be 6-lane corridor in total, 6 lanes at or 6 lanes at grade and then 2 lanes elevated, and that's in the third column here. And then corridor A, we looked at an 8-lane option, which is 8 lanes at grade. And then we also looked at corridors B and D. Those are the 2 colors that were shown on that map. So as a result of both the analysis and also the public engagement that we had regarding those corridors, this is kind of what we came up with. So we eliminated corridors B and D. In addition to those being cut off, and those are eliminated a lot due to property impacts, environmental impacts, and also social cultural impacts too. So it was a lot of, and of course, anytime you're making a new corridor, you're just bound to have more impacts because there's not a road there, there's things there. And then the other one that we eliminated was also, maybe we didn't put it on the slide. Okay, so I also mentioned in the one before that there was an 8-lane at grade option that was also eliminated within this process too. And that was 8-lane at grade option that would follow the yellow corridor here. So that one was also taken out. So then now we're left with the 6 lanes at grade with 2 lanes elevated. There's also interim that I mentioned too that I'll show in the upcoming slides. So we're going to continue to analyze the refined project limits. And by that, you see all of them started here at State Road 70. We've since refined those project limits to cut it all the way back to 9th Street East right here on 301. So that was what we mean with the refined project limits. And also we're analyzing 6 lanes at grade with 2 lanes elevated. No build is still a viable option also. And we're aiming to have a public hearing this summer, 2026. Okay, so now we're going to take a look at some of the typical sections along the corridor. We're starting with the no build. The no build doesn't mean that absolutely nothing will do absolutely nothing to increase the quality of the corridor. There'll still be some, there could still be some what we call operation improvement projects, some signalization upgrades, safety upgrades that can still happen, of course, throughout the life of the corridor. But for the most part, this is what existing condition is and what would appear in the no build. So first, we're going to start south of the DeSoto Bridge. Speed limit for this section is around 45 miles an hour. The typical section varies a lot in this area. For a good chunk, it's actually 7 lanes, like before going northbound. So we just wanted to represent this as a general kind of observation of what happens in that corridor. So for the most part, it's 6 lanes with 3 northbound, 3 southbound. There's sidewalks on both sides of the road and no car parking. When we look at the DeSoto Bridge typical section, you have 4 lanes, 2 lanes northbound, 2 lanes southbound. There are no bike or pedestrian accommodations along this structure, and the speed limit is 50 miles an hour. Now we're looking north of the DeSoto Bridge. There are 2 lanes in each direction. There are sidewalks, but they're not consistent throughout the corridor. That's why we didn't show them. There's also no bike facilities with speed limit of 50 miles an hour. Now we're going to look at the build alternative. And what this one refers to is the corridor A, which is 6 lanes at grade and 2 lanes elevated. Now, I did mention that the project limits were being revised. So here you see that happening with the beginning project starting at US 301 and 9th Street East. Then it continues along west along US 301, merges with US 41 and continues north across the DeSoto Bridge, ending just north of 25th Street East. There's a railroad, the bridge here with a railroad line crossing, but for the purpose of the project, we can say it as north of 25th Street East. So this is looking south of the DeSoto Bridge. So, south of the DeSoto Bridge. And this section, so would have 3 lanes northbound, 3 lanes southbound. South of the DeSoto Bridge, so that the lane count at grade stays pretty much what it is today. But then you do have, we will have to widen it for a little bit. So there's some proposed right of way, mostly on the east side, to accommodate this viaduct here. So a single lane viaduct in each direction. There is a potential for it to be tolled. This PD&E study is not analyzing that, and that will have to take place with like central office and Florida Turnpike Enterprise. So all we're doing is just evaluating what would an elevated viaduct be with this study. The design speed is 45 miles an hour, and that stands for both the at-grade portion and also the elevated portion. We'll continue to have sidewalks on each side of the road, and sprouted for the section south of the DeSoto Bridge. Now for the DeSoto Bridge, All right, so the Soto Bridge, so we also have a 3 lane, maintaining 3 lanes in each direction. One thing I want to note here is that, so you have that elevated viaduct in that previous image. So at the bridge, to save us from just building 2 structures for, no real reason. We're just gonna merge that viaduct down, just bring it down at grade and then cross it across the bridge, across the same structure. So you have these 2 lanes in the middle, which will be those express lanes. And then you have this separated with a buffer separation. And one major need that we're able to add to this is that we have shared use paths in both northbound and southbound sides of the structure. Now, throughout the projects, south of the DeSoto Bridge, we have proposed sidewalks in there just because the right of way is so tight in that area, it makes it harder to fit a shared use path. So we're working with FDOT to see what kind of alternatives that we can make as far as having safer kind of bicycle and pedestrian routes, well, mainly bicycle routes. So on the west side of 41 and the east side of 41. So still working with departments to kind of determine that. But south of DeSoto Bridge, we have proposed sidewalks. North of DeSoto Bridge, we have a shared use path proposed for that typical section, which I'll go to next. So here's a typical section for north of DeSoto Bridge. It looks very similar to the one at the south end. Not touching it, I swear. I don't know, maybe, you know what, because it was. Okay, so yes, so I think what we did is that we copied it from this presentation is one that we made before, but we didn't delete all that information, so apologize about that. So typical section looks mostly the same. We have 3 lanes in each direction. But like I mentioned, we do have a shared use path for the north north of the DeSoto Bridge. And then you have an elevated viaduct. Okay. No,
Hold on, I can, if you wait a second, I can turn it off.
Okay.
Wait, does it even? How do you do this again?
That should be.
Transitions.
No, animation,
Sorry, animations. Okay.
animation. There's not a star there, so it doesn't really look like there's anything on it.
Yeah, I don't know what's happening.
Animation paint.
Oh.
And the problem slide is the north.
Oh, because we're not even on the right. So
It's not
that.
that way.
Yeah, try that one. No? So this is the.
You could probably just make that side bigger here, and we can look at it in this view.
That works. Wait, what side is this side?
Yeah, that's one.
Okay. That's weird,
Pull down the notes section.
right?
We'll have this fixed, that's nice.
Here, that's.
Yes, perfect, yes. So, okay, so yes, so the typical section, most of the same. 3 lanes northbound, 3 lanes southbound, so this one would be widening north of DeSoto Bridge. Right now it's existing kind of 4 lanes along that corridor.
What do you mean by north of DeSoto Bridge to Meadow?
Yes, ma'am, Palmetto. Yes, that's correct, Palmetto. And then so we do have a shared use paths on both southbound, both west side and also the east side, with the speed limit of 45 miles an hour. And then, of course, just like the typical section south of the DeSoto Bridge, there's potential for it to be total. Next slide, please. Okay, so now we're looking at the build alternative, the interim. So this is one I kind of mentioned a little bit before. So just reviewing the limits, we just went through the one in green, which is the build alternative. And then we have the interim design here in yellow. So you see those limits do intersect each other. So the interim one begins at 064 Manatee Avenue East, which is westbound 064, goes across the DeSoto Bridge and ends just before the US 301 or 10th Street West intersection. And so you may be familiar with the DeSoto Bridge PD&E was concluded last year. So that one was studying what we call an in-kind replacement. So that was looking at replacing the DeSoto Bridge just as a 4-lane bridge structure and adding shared use paths on each side. But since then, there's been kind of a lot of changes internally with FDOT. So they're able to utilize those federal funds for the same, to fund the in-kind replacement, but also add some additional state funds so they can potentially do a widening. So we're looking at this opportunity. You know, of course, we don't want to hit a bridge twice. You know, we want to have as minimal construction impacts as possible. So what we prefer to do would be to build it to a 6-lane structure that can be expanded to the future to accommodate the future express lanes. So just rebuild the bridge once, you can do it for 6 lanes, but in order to do that, we have to do a new PD&E study, because when you study an in-kind replacement, it doesn't look at capacity additions in that PD&E study. And you can't take that study that just looked at a 4-lane one and just say, okay, we're just gonna add 2 more lanes, like pencil like that. So that's kind of why it's a little complicated why we're having 2 PD&Es, but that's kind of the gist of why we need to cover that. So our study is looking at, again, the yellow for the interim. And keep it next slide, please. So now we're looking at the typical sections for it. So for south of the DeSoto Bridge, so again, this starts at State Road 64, so it starts a lot further north than the other one. So it will maintain the 6 lanes that are northbound and 3 lanes northbound and 3 lanes southbound. And also we'll maintain the sidewalks on both sides of the roadway. Next slide, please. And then you have for the DeSoto Bridge, so 3 lanes northbound, 3 lanes southbound. You'll notice that you don't have those 2 express lanes in there. But the way we'll construct the bridge is that it'll be constructed so that it'll be able to be widened in the future. So you want it to come and add a new structure, you just widen to the outside. You don't have to drill any piers into the riverbed. Just add to the outside, and then you can put additional lanes on there. And then it will include much needed shared use paths on both the west and east side of the bridge structure with the similar design speed 45 miles an hour. Oh, and also add shoulders too, because I'm pretty sure everybody's familiar with, if there's a crash, you know, the bridge just locks up. So now there'll be shoulders that, in case, you know, emergency vehicle or if there's a, you know, incident or breakdown, they can pull to the side and keep traffic going. So north of the DeSoto Bridge, so we're looking to have 3 lanes in each direction. Again, this is the shorter limit, so this one just ends at US 301, so it's not going as far north as north of 25th Street, like the building alternative. So we'll increase a little bit of widening to 3 lanes northbound, 3 lanes southbound, and you'll have the shared use path on both sides of the road also. So when we look at the funding, the PD&E is funded, and we are moving forward with that right now. It's funded for the year 2024. Design is partially funded. As far as when we're getting the final funding for that, is to be determined, and it should be determined for also right of way and construction. And this is related to the build alternative, the ultimate condition. So this is where we are in the study process. So the PD&E started the first quarter of 2025. We'll be continuing with data collection and traffic analysis and developing the alternatives. We did have a public workshop in February, that's represented here. And next up is the public hearing that we're gonna have in the second quarter of 2026. And we're looking to have the study approved by the end of this calendar year. Sorry, please. So right now we're finalizing the environmental and engineering documents. We're continuing to refine the concepts. One thing that we're gonna add that we didn't have at the workshop are the pond locations, because of course we have to treat the water that comes off, but you don't really look at that in alternatives analysis. So that's one thing that we're looking at now. And we'll have presented at the public hearing. We're also going to work with the state environmental agencies. You know, now we have to dive deeper into the cultural impacts, the environmental impacts, just make sure that we're crossing all our, you know, dotting the lines, crossing all the T's in regards to all the community impacts that we're going to have with the project. And also planning for the public hearing in the summer. And we're going to select a preferred alternative, which will be presented at the public hearing this summer also. Next slide, please. So this wraps up our presentation. We go to the project website that is live now. Around a week before, actually, when we announce a public hearing, around 21 days before, we'll have all the documents in libraries of both Palmetto and Bradenton, along at the District 1 Manatee Op Center. But more information will come as you know that schedule gets finalized. And I would like to, just take the message, you know, just you know, speeding, of course, on the particularly the theme of safety that's been present today. Just you know, speeding is you know dangerous, and it definitely increases increases safety as you drive. And you really don't save that much time speeding. You slow down. Now let's open up for questions.
I think that the work program that goes into effect in July has construction money for DeSoto Bridge in fiscal 31. How does that fit with your construction funding picture you had up there a minute ago?
Yeah, well, typically, so the default, the default timeline that we have is like 2 years for design, 2 years for right of way, 2 years for construction. There are ways that we can compress that schedule, and the department is looking to do that. So right now, as far as the DeSoto project goes, I know they have the federal funding, that one's locked in, but they still need to get more funding so that they could fund the rest of the project. So it's not fully funded right now. So I don't think it's even represented in the July one as of yet, but I definitely could be wrong with that. So I defer to our program folks for the most accurate information because I'm not included in those conversations.
How much of the public comment from before the alternatives analysis was taken into consideration for this design?
Let's see, before the alternative, before the February.
Yeah, before they went, so, you know, this, like you mentioned, I mean, this process has been going on for years. So before they even did the analysis of the 10, that was because of the public comment that they received before that about the elevated thoroughfare. So,
I'm sorry, I'm sorry, continue.
no, it's okay.
Yeah, I was gonna ask if you're referring to like the previous, like, I think it was called CMAP study
Mhm.
before then.
Yeah. CMNA,
Yes,
yeah.
Thanks, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I am, and I'm curious because there was a lot of concern about an elevated thoroughfare, and that's what's being presented here without any other, you know, I don't know, for this idea that we're gonna elevate all the regional throughput and continue to have community access on the bottom while still maintaining a 6-lane high-speed roadway. This doesn't really scream community benefit. So I'm just wondering how that was balanced in the outcome of this.
That's a good question. So, I mean, all the community input that we received for all corridors kind of played into this decision. Of course, there's still ongoing community coordination with those communities, but even, you know, I was previously with the department until last year, and I did a little bit of a stint in District 1, Tampa, but a little bit of stint in District 1, and part of the time when I was down here, we actually were working with those communities and meeting with small group meetings to get their input on all the corridors, and even and CMAS definitely did come up. So, you know, what the final design looks like, there are ways that you can kind of reduce at least the impacts of a vertical structure. That's through some, you know, some engineering design and also through some, you know, aesthetic features added to it. For example, this is one that was done in District 7 with Candy Boulevard. That's an example. Now, as far as the ag grade features, I mean, certainly there'll have to be a lot looked into, especially increasing safety within the corridor, especially when you consider, you know, finding within a residential community. So there are definitely some measures that could be taken to increase safety on you know, we've got areas of the FDM manual that talks about, you know, speed management strategies that could be implemented within the corridor to help increase safety, particular intersections and crashes can be, you know, localized to reduce crashes and improve safety within those situations. So kind of the conversation is a little bit ongoing, but with the communication that we've had so far, and even most recently, the most public interaction was at the workshop. We had these options presented with both the typical sections and the concepts, and we didn't hear a lot of pushback from folks along that community, and folks definitely attended there because, you know, we knew them from some past meetings. So far the interaction has been okay with it, and we haven't had such a severe pushback as was previously with the previous study.
Okay, that's good. I was just concerned that with how much pushback there was at the beginning with this, and even after to go right back to the original, you know, but it sounds like you guys don't have that pushback that you're experiencing, so.
Yeah.
Yes.
So in terms of how this is gonna affect downtown Bradenton, where does the elevation start?
Great question. So we don't have the concept right. Oh, wait, I can say a little bit. All right, so the elevation, basically, as soon as you get off at least, so you're talking about Bradenton, so basically, as soon as you get off the bridge, you
Yeah.
start elevating it because you need to get elevated over the State Road 64. So as soon as you get, so right,
So it's not gonna go up through the actual downtown?
I'm sorry,
It will?
yeah, so.
Where does it stop?
Yeah, so it'll start to get elevated here.
Land on your side of the bridge is where the elevation.
But it's not gonna elevate, this bridge isn't gonna elevate to downtown. It's not gonna get the traffic up from the downtown where it is right now, where.
Oh,
It's gonna go from 9th Street,
great
right?
question.
This
So,
road separates two different parts of a very urban neighborhood, and it's very difficult to cross it. I mean, you can cross it, but it's not fun.
mhm.
And so I was thinking, well, if you started the elevation earlier, you could get all that traffic off the ground and make it more city-like underneath.
Well, let me just start, okay.
Okay.
Let me just start from Palmetto and I'll go down.
Okay.
So starting at Palmetto, so the elevation would start basically as soon as you get off this bridge structure here,
Yeah.
which crosses over the CSX line right here. So it starts to be elevated here, will continue to be elevated.
Okay, so Palmetto's getting the city treatment.
I'm sorry,
Palmetto's getting like what I'm talking about, the sort of getting elevation, getting it off the ground, and then
it's on both sides.
it's on both sides.
Yeah, both sides, yeah, so we elevated coming through here, and then as it gets closer, as it crosses over Haven, then it'll start to go down. Then it'll be at grade with the DeSoto Bridge. Cross the DeSoto Bridge, and then as soon as you get off, as soon as you touch land,
Yes, okay.
on the south side of the DeSoto Bridge, then it'll start to be elevated again. And because it has to clear this State Road 64 intersection.
Yeah,
So it'll elevate over that, continue to be elevated,
oh, that's great.
and then it'll touch down along 301 here.
And then back to what, Corin
Correct.
was saying, why then do you need 6 lanes on the ground?
45
If you're
miles.
elevating, it seems like you could pick that up. take
So,
those lanes.
yeah, and that's, yeah, that's a good question, and,
Just because it's
Yeah.
such an urban area, you know, because it's literally the downtown.
yeah, so south of, okay, so it's kind of, good to think about it 2 seconds, so south of DeSoto, you already have pretty much a 6-lane civil possession going through there. So there wouldn't necessarily, I mean, there'd be some widening just because you have to make space in the medians for the piers, and then push out the sidewalks and stuff like that, so there's some widening there. But then on the north side is DeSoto, right now it's 4 lanes, so that section is the main section that would be going from 4 to 6 lanes.
No, I know that it's 6 right now on the Bradenton side. I'm suggesting, well, why not, if you're gonna elevate it, why not make it better on the ground, because it isn't.
Yeah, and that's what I was kind of getting at too. I was like, why isn't it more community focused?
Yeah.
It still feels like a throughput. And
See what you're saying?
it's sort of like, well, why aren't we making it more?
No, I know.
Why are we slowing it down? Why aren't we making it more bike ped friendly?
I see what you're saying. Yeah, so right now, these concepts are kind of based on the output of the traffic analysis. And, so that kind of determined the need to maintain a 6-lane section south and then widen 6 to 6 lanes on the north side. But I mean, and granted, what the PD studies doesn't necessarily have to be built, it just clears us to build it, but if the department then wanted to switch their minds and then, reduce it down to 4, that's something that the department could look into, but right now, just the purpose of either the study is looking at the traffic analysis, and that determined that 6 lanes is required on that grade throughout the corridor.
All right, are there any more questions, comments? Corinne?
So I know you saw there's some like flex lanes and shoulders on the actual bridge typical. Are one of them gonna be dedicated for Manatee County Area Transit as a transit lane?
Right now, that's not the case. Right now, it's just 3 general use lanes that are proposed. So, we'd have to continue to coordinate with Manatee County Transit to see if that's something that they wanted to do. But right now, it's just the 6 general purpose lanes across the bridge.
Once upon a time, you guys had some renderings and stuff like that. Do you have updated ones that you're gonna share at some point?
Yeah, we'll have those for the public hearing. But right now, they're still in development, we're still refining them, so they're just not available for public display right now.
All right, and you said that that meeting is the public hearing meeting again was,
You'll send us information through the MPO?
Yeah.
On when that is?
Yeah,
and that's
Yeah, we haven't
summer of
announced it
this
yet.
year?
I'm sorry, ma'am?
Summer of this year is
Yes,
planned, okay, thank you. Any other comments? Going once, going twice, all right, well, it's great, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to item 6B, the NPO report, which includes 6B1, NPO study progress. NPO planning staff. Nina.
That's me. At least for the first part. So we just want to make a habit of offering updates on the planning studies and initiatives that we have going on. As you all know, we are updating our prioritization process. We did have the opportunity to interview most everyone in this room, I believe, about our prioritization process currently, what's working well, what's not working well, and where there is room for improvement. So our next step is we're currently sort of summarizing everything that we heard in those interviews. And then at the next stakeholder workshop on May 27th, we'll bring back what we heard. We'll offer some recommendations for improvements we can make to the prioritization process, discuss those with you before we go and implement any changes to the process or the tool itself. So you should all have received an invitation to the stakeholder workshop. It's May 27th, currently right here at this location. And then the goal is then to have this sort of wrapped up ahead of the next call for projects, which will happen in the fall. And then our staff, consulting staff will be staying on for some technical support. So that's where we are, please. I hope to see you here on May 27th for that workshop. And then I'll hand it over to Nick.
So I'll give an update on our regional freight analysis. It's just a quick reminder, we are kind of inventorying all of the freight infrastructure and movement in the region. And for this one, for this presentation, we just broke it down by task to just kind of run through it and remind everyone of what all it's going to be involved. So currently in progress, it's we're taking in all the existing infrastructure and freight movements, and we're currently very deep into the freight activity center analysis. We're looking at where the freight hotspots are, and we have from FDOT preliminary kind of district-wide freight activity center boundaries. We're kind of going in and actually looking at the parcel level and adjusting those, and then also looking at future land use and kind of identifying where there might be some potential friction in the future, and of course updating those boundaries. There's been a lot of new development recently, so we're doing that, and then also looking at connectivity between them. And we are almost finalized with our stakeholder list of who we're going to be interviewing and getting thoughts on freight in the region. And then in the future, we're going to be looking at freight mobility analyses. So where are the truck trips and freight originating? Where are they going? Where are they passing through? And then through that, we're going to have emerging trends and future needs identified, and that'll culminate in recommendations and specific projects that will be summarized in the final report. So here's some of the kind of preliminary maps that we have so far to kind of demonstrate what we're looking at with existing efficient freight infrastructure movement. So we're kind of taking a bunch of different sources and freight corridors that have been identified, kind of putting them all together and then seeing what makes sense for a regional freight network, and then also looking at things like truck parking and starting to take a look at that analysis that I mentioned. As well as we're going to be, for the MPO, we look at safety and everything, and that's going to be another part of this, looking at where some of those friction points are and where truck crashes occur. And then for the freight activity analysis, as I mentioned, we're making modifications and additions, so we're modifying the existing freight activity center boundaries or verifying, and then identifying new ones. And through that, we're looking at connectivity, and then looking at future and current land use, and we had a couple of ways to visualize that. Where you can see the top right one is just the dominant future land use, and we're gonna overlay that on the freight activity centers, and then below it's a little more fine grained where all those, can't really see it on here, but pie charts, so you can kind of see, just because something's 51% industrial on that top map, of colored one color, but with that, that's break down a little better. And then, of course, we're gonna look at resiliency assessments as well, overlaying some of our, previous and current work with exposure to weather events and such. And have some nice photos from our Fort Manatee tour where consultants from astronauts went out and identified some stakeholder events such as the truckers appreciation event in September. So really getting down and seeing the people actually move freight in the region and getting some thoughts, and just currently finalizing our stakeholder list, and that'll be ongoing for quite some time. And with that, we'll have Banesh here to give you guys an update in September. Any questions from anyone about the regional freight analysis? None. You can all.
All right, I'm gonna give you some updates on our last two studies that we're working on. The first one being the watershed and transportation asset analysis. So as you may recall, this study is building upon the MPO's resiliency and vulnerability work that was done in 2023 and 2024 to help us better understand and identify transportation infrastructure vulnerabilities caused by storm surge, flooding, watershed hazards. Currently, the study team is wrapping up task 2, which is the data collection, integration, and regional flood modeling. This task establishes a framework for conducting the vulnerability assessment and evacuation scenario planning. So they're establishing this framework that has data in 4 different categories of transportation assets, community assets, associated economic indicators, natural hazards, and then base map data. So using this framework, the study team collected data sources from both federal and state sources, as well as conversations with local state stakeholder partners from our jurisdictions. They are taking that data and identifying any remaining gaps that need to be looked at and addressed. And once that's completed, they'll move on to task 3, which is the transportation asset analysis portion. So they have done interviews with representatives from 9 different organizations within our jurisdictions to make sure that we're using the best data available out there and ensure that we're all headed in the same direction with our efforts and not competing against each other in what we're trying to do. We also opened a survey in April to see if there's any local areas that are experiencing flooding that aren't captured by some of the data models that are out there now. That study, if you did get an invite and you haven't filled it out, there's still some time to provide feedback. And if you didn't get an invite, don't worry about it. You don't need to provide any of that feedback. And then later this summer, we'll be hosting a workshop with those stakeholders to just kind of affirm that what they've identified in the analysis is correct, or are there additional gaps or things that areas that we should be investigating. And then the last study we wanted to share an update on was the regional transit feasibility study. As you might remember, this is to look at the unmet transit needs within the region. and evaluate options to address those needs, hopefully leading to an identification of practical actions and strategies that we can do, which will include potential funding sources to implement some of those potential opportunities. The study team is currently doing an assessment of the existing transit network. They're reviewing studies from both MCAT, BREEZE, FDOT, and past studies that the MPO has done. They're also looking at ridership data of the various transit services that are provided within the region. And then the next step will be to define the regional transit needs based on all that information. And with transit playing a big role in the community and being vital for some of our residents, there will be opportunities for public engagement, both for riders and non-riders. The study team is working on finalizing that public participation plan, which will include interviews with stakeholders, a workshop, as well as a survey that will build upon the data that our transit agencies already collect through the onboard passenger surveys, transit development plans, and marketing benchmark studies. So those are the updates that we're trying to get in the habit of, like Nina mentioned, to kind of keep you up to speed on where we're at and when we have information to bring to you, whether it be documentation like Nina brought for the organizational safety study or maps like Nick shared from the freight analysis. We'll be sure to include those so you guys can have an opportunity to see where we're at. So if you have any questions, we'll be happy to take them. Otherwise, you can expect another update at the meeting in September.
All right, thank you. A lot of good information. All right, so we are now on to our last agenda item, once around the table. Start with
No additional from me.
Have anything?
Yeah.
I have nothing, like, nothing from me, thank you.
Okay.
Nothing for me.
Okay. So as part of our spring service changes that took place on April 25th, Breeze did launch mobile fare payment system. So that's been in place for just a couple of weeks or so, and it's kind of been growing pretty much since we launched it. So that was something that we got a lot of feedback from the public that was really wanted. And looking into the next phases where we'll be able to do tap to pay. So that's it. Thank you.
Just as a reminder, we will have a trucker appreciation event in September, so I'll make sure that everybody gets all of that information in advance so you guys know when it is. And we would love to have you if you want to come out and support our truckers that keep that freight moving through our port. We'd love to have you. Absolutely.
All right, MPO staff.
Two things, in addition to the tip being open for public comment, the UPWP is also open for public comment. It'll close on the 18th, the day of the board. So any input that is needed, please feel free to do so. In addition to that, as far as the AV system, we're having the general contractor start working tomorrow here. So we'll be a little bit limited access, at least as far as in the office. But feel free to reach out to staff, either email or phone. I just want to let everybody know about that.
No, next 2 weeks, the general contractor will be here and working, and then hopefully by the end of June, we'll have the AV really called. Our meeting is probably starting in July, fully functional for the getting to see some in August. So we're happy to have that on the path and be ready to get the word fall. Full out on that.
So are you going to have the MPO board meeting too?
That's possible.
Term.
Yeah, we want to do some testing, obviously, here. You all and JC and some of our other larger groups. And then ultimately we have some conversation. Potentially on Zoom, that and getting that being here. So we do quite a bit more technical capacity from our last location. voice. Speaker off the voice uplift, so there'll be a lot more technical capacity in there, it's just a matter of getting everyone and making sure they have access. So.
And we're hoping that the virtual experience is gonna be much better than our old system and our current system. So hopefully, by the September round of meetings, everything's up. We should be up and running before that, but installation is, the end of June. At least for the KV part of it, then from there is trial and error, fixing all the bugs out.
All right, so, if there's nothing else from the rest of the group, in Sarasota County, we had our transportation workshop on April 22nd. If you're interested, you can go back and look at it, on Meetings on Demand. We basically had a workshop before to discuss all parts of our transportation group. As some may know, Public Works was split into two individual groups, stormwater and transportation. And we were able to cover all aspects of our transportation group, from the planning, survey and mapping, our field services, as well as our traffic engineering transportation planning group. Part of that workshop, we introduced what we are calling 7 Connect. Those are 7 of the roadway projects that we have that are major projects that are going on, which include Fruitville Road, widening out from Lorraine to Sarasota Center Boulevard out to the Lorraine Road extension that goes between Fruitville and Palmer, Bee Ridge widening from what's that, Bent Tree, I think it is, over to Lorraine Road. And that's part of a P3 agreement with the folks of Hi Hat, which they're supposed to build extension of Bee Ridge going east of Lorraine out to what is an unknown road right now. It's called North-South Roadway B. Then we also have some additional segments of Lorraine Road, which will go south of Clark, where currently it terminates all the way down to Knights Trail. Those are in 2 segments. Laurel Road widening, which that one is actually out to bid for construction. That is part of a P3, and that's to widen that to four lanes from Knights Trail over to Jacaranda. Then we have South River Road that we've been working on. Basically, that's 2 segments, and that's going from its current around where we last cut off at just south of US 41 down to Winchester, and then Winchester down to the county line. And then we have another P3 agreement that we have East Minnesota Beach Road that goes the current terminus, basically city of Northport, city county line over to 776. And so those are known as 7 Connect. And then we also launched our transportation story map it's live, and right now it's hosted by our consultant, but we will be migrating that over to the county system. So a lot of good things that we're doing with the county transportation wise. So that's all I have. And our next meeting is Monday, September 14th at 10 a.m. So that meeting is adjourned. It's before 12, so.